Hello, everyone. I'm Kelly Wilhite, holistic health practitioner and coach, and I am passionate about providing holistic health solutions so you can have relief from your suffering and freedom from your relentless symptoms. You may have noticed that our July theme has been centered around gluten. Now, each month we'll have a new theme so I can provide you consistent learning about a specific topic. Of course, you can always post comments and questions on other topics. If you want more deeper dives in a more personal community, you can also join my Facebook group, Freedom from Chronic Symptoms. In staying with our July topic of gluten, I wanted to cover an answer to a very frequently asked question, and that is, well, actually it's two questions, I think. Is gluten-free diet a fad, and why has it become such an issue? So the answer to the first question is no. Gluten-free is not a fad, or at least it shouldn't be perceived as one. Of course, if you just replace a bunch of processed foods with gluten-free processed ones, that's a start, but it's not really addressing having a true healthy gluten-free diet. I do help my clients navigate the how for eating gluten-free and in making many other healthy changes. But unfortunately, we don't have the time in this video to get into all that detail about how to go about doing it, but I do want you to understand the why behind it. So to really understand why gluten-free diet is not a fad and why it is such a big issue, it would first help to understand what gluten is and what effect it has on our bodies. So I'm going to keep this simple. There is deeper science around this, but there's no need to go into all that detail here. Gluten is a protein found in specific grains like wheat, rye, and barley. Now, when it's used as an ingredient in processed foods, it can have a sticky glue-like consistency, which is why it works so well as a binder and can make things chewy. Now, the reason gluten-free is so popular, and especially so with anti-inflammatory dietary plans and for those wanting to reduce internal inflammation for whatever health reason, is because gluten is one of the most inflammatory items we can ingest. The reason for this is because of what gluten does in our gut and the cascade of problems it sets off after doing so. Just like with any food substances, along with stomach acid, we naturally produce enzymes to digest proteins. However, gluten is not broken down well. This is regardless of whether someone has an optimally functioning digestive system or not. Our systems simply do not break down gluten. So when someone ingests gluten, even a very small amount, a crumb, it will result in inflammation for anyone. Now you may ask, well, why doesn't everyone get sick then? Why doesn't everyone have an allergy or a sensitivity to gluten? Well, the real answer to that depends on many factors. In the essence of time, I'll suffice to say that for some, though inflammation does occur for everybody, the body's able to overcome it within a few hours or even a day. But for others, many others, their bodies are not able to overcome the inflammation, and I'm one of them, and damage that the gluten does over time, it becomes chronic, and the damage triggers a cascade of other health problems that manifest in various ways throughout the body. For some of those ways could be migraines or joint pain or muscle weakness and ache, bloating, stomach pain, sleep problems, hormone imbalances, and many, many more. You can see it doesn't just reside in the gut. This doesn't even cover all the actual diagnosed conditions like autoimmune disease, diabetes, and etc. So let me give you a visual. It may help what's happening in our body with gluten. So the small intestine, well, let's just say pretend this is the small intestine. And these are finger-like projections that are called villi that are part of our small intestine, and these are tight junctions called tight junctions. So what happens when our food is digested? The nutrients from those foods, macronutrients, micronutrients, they are broken down into small enough particle size where they can get through the tight junctions and get into our bloodstream where they're supposed to be. Things that are undigestible, like fibers, which are very important, but we don't want them getting into our bloodstream, they pass over the villi and they get into our colon and they're excreted. So what happens with gluten is it doesn't just pass over. It doesn't just pass over, but it begins to break down the villi, and the tight junctions get wider. And so you can see the damage and the breakdown that's happening. So what happens in this case is not only does gluten get into our bloodstream, but so do other substances at this point that should not. And this begins the process of what's called intestinal permeability. Now, most have some form of intestinal permeability, not any that's creating a lot of problems, but most have some form of it. But it becomes an issue when it's hyperpermeable, or sometimes you've probably heard the term leaky gut. So inflammation and a lack of healthy digestive functioning has started in the gut, and with leaky gut, substances flow into our bloodstream that are not supposed to be there. So what happens when things get into our bloodstream that aren't supposed to be there? Our body sees these particles as foreign invaders, and our immune system attacks just the way it was created to. So as we continue to ingest gluten, this inflammatory process continues, and it triggers symptoms and adverse health conditions like autoimmune conditions and other types of chronic problems for which the catalyst is gluten. Now, there are generally many other factors. I don't want everybody to think that it's just gluten. There are many other factors that can be root causes for chronic health issues. But addressing gluten intake is a very important place to start. You can see why the topic of gluten has become such a big issue. You can also see that regardless if someone has an allergy or a sensitivity to gluten, if someone wants to address a chronic condition or ongoing symptoms, removing gluten is an essential step to help remove at least one key irritant that is triggering or aggravating inflammation. So I hope this was helpful. I would love to hear from you. Post your comments or questions in the comments of the post, and feel free to also download the 3 steps to transition to gluten-free. I'll put the link in the comments so you can gain access to that. And for now, God bless you and enjoy the rest of your day. Bye-bye.